feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Tuesday morning. It's February 3rd after the Wolves' 128-137 loss in Memphis to the Grizzlies, giving up 137 points. Not great. We got to talk about the Wolves, one of the Wolves' worst defensive performances of the season on today's show. Just got to talk about the most recent game of the season that they did not flip the switch, as they like to say. Talk about some other specifics, I think, from the game, too. I always think the Julius Randle, Jaren Jackson Jr. matchup is informative when the Wolves play the Grizzlies. Bench didn't score again, 13 total points from the four guys that came off the bench. On a positive note, though, Jaden McDaniels is really shooting it lately, 5 for 7 from deep again last night. And then I think we should do one final Giannis conversation before the trade deadline. It's only fair to let all of the guests give their Giannis thoughts. And Kyle hasn't been on since this Giannis rumor has gathered some steam. I am joined by Kyle Theige. He's in Portland. I'm in Memphis. The Wolves are in Canada. Trade deadline's 48 hours away. What's up, man?
How's it going, dude? The amount of people that actually reached out to me saying, I hope your foot's okay, was pretty fucked up. I'm going to be honest with you. I had strep last week. I don't sleep much because of this puppy, but life is good. Been fun to watch some basketball games. I thought that first Memphis game was like, okay, this is kind of fun. Like maybe they're just the roller coaster of an NBA season. You lose 5 in a row and then you start to string together some wins. And then another part of the NBA season, or definitely a part of Timberwolves basketball, is just when you expect them to zag, they zig. And last night was another one of those zigs. And I don't know if this is probably not timely nor appropriate, but I couldn't help but think last night, because I saw the announcement yesterday that like Dave Chappelle is going to be at some casino in Minnesota coming up or whatever with the Clips. And last night, again, all the videos, you were there. I know John Krasinski was there, so we appreciate local coverage being there to get those post-game locker room videos that we're going to play today and the Finch quotes. It just reminds me of the Chappelle skit of Making the Band, when everyone just kept fucking up and he kept closing down the studio again, and they all just kind of rolled their eyes. Because you got a lot of good sound clips from last night, but man, it's just like, we're just doing this again. We're just doing this again. So an interesting dynamic, and you mix that into the fact that as we record Tuesday morning, we're about 55 hours away from a trade deadline, and Minnesota's in the mix or caught up in rumors and headlines about potentially the biggest trade in franchise history. So a lot to talk about today. Yeah,
related to the Clips, and it's the same thing over and over again. And I agree with that. And trust me, I guarantee you it bugs me more than it bugs anybody else. I'm the one asking the questions. The same thing. It's not like we aren't asking other questions. I'll say that.
For sure.
After those types of games, when you just ask a question, more broadly about a basketball thing or a trend or whatever, and they've lost, it's not a good answer. Right. So I don't put that, I don't put that clip out there. Right. Because I promise you wouldn't be interested by it. It's not if you want to see it, you could hear all of our questions if you go to the Timberwolves YouTube page. But yeah, I mean, this is becoming a theme. Obvious. It's been a theme, the inconsistent energy and effort. And I'm sorry for people who are listening to this, if this topic is getting tired. I agree with you. We'll try to talk about some other things too, but it is a story, right? It is the story. Mm-hmm. It's the difference between this team being where they are in the standings and being, the 2 or 3 seed in the state. Dante was talking about that last night when we were talking to him. He's like, it's that close. We should be up there. There's no reason we shouldn't be up at that level. And the reason isn't that there's no reason. The reason is this inconsistency of energy and effort that showed up again last night. Though I will say, I thought Memphis played pretty well last night. I will give I will give them some credit there.
And also too, this is just from like a betting perspective, it's almost like in those 2-game series, right? Like I remember Portland was the famous one. Every year they were out here playing back-to-backs in Portland. It's almost like you split like every time. It doesn't really matter who's on the injury report. It doesn't really matter if it's a straight back-to-back or there's a day off. It just does seem like those teams kind of split. And I thought Memphis played really well last night, but you can't watch that game, and you were there. I was not, but you can't watch that game and think about the lack of energy, the lack of defense, just kind of the overall malaise that this team brings to situations that really frustrates you as a fan. Because again, yeah, now it's February and we're having the same outline that you emailed me that we sent in January and December and November about. And I do think, though, it's actually there's new things to talk about because possibly of this trade deadline. Is this group, just hit its wall, or do they need an injection of either talent or energy or someone else to bring it? Because, I don't want to say the 6.5 good players thing again, but you watched last night and it's like 6.5 good players again. And that's starting to affect, it always affected wins and losses, right? But I always check the NBA standings every morning, even though I don't really care about the ups and downs of it, just to be like, oh, where are they? Mm-hmm. They're 2.5 back of the 3 seed, right? Like they're 1.5 games back of home court for the 4 seed. And now it's starting to be more frustrating for me. And I think a lot of people listening, because it's like, you can think of 3 specific games. It's like, if you were just not fuck that up and taking it a little more seriously for 3 minutes in a 48-minute stretch, like all of this would look a little better. And they just don't have, I don't want to say they don't have a killer instinct or any of that stuff, but they just don't have that final piece of the puzzle. And I think it's mentally to just be killers, to do what other teams that are great teams that have real chances to contend do.
So you said 2 things in there, like not having the final piece mentally. Agree with that. You also said, is this roster kind of played out? Like, does it need a change? And I know, just because obviously you and I have talked offline about Giannis trade and just the deadline in general. And I know that your stance is not trading for Giannis and wanting to keep Jaden. But given this pattern, does yet another game in the pattern of the Wolves clearly and admittedly, not bringing the energy at all, move you at all to like the idea of a Giannis trade more? We're going to do pros and cons here.
Okay, there we go. Let's go. For starters, I was talking to Jake Painting because I think Giannis is a lot of people, including Jake's, favorite non-Timberwolves player. So I do want to kind of just start with, of course, you make a trade for Giannis, right? It's not about would you trade for Giannis. That's such a outdated, dumb way to do any of this. That's like how you debate on Twitter. Of course, you trade for Giannis. The question is what is the price? And to me, if the price was, I don't even like doing the mock stuff, but if it is like a Julius and Rudy and Mike and a couple other things that go to different teams, and the Wolves are recruiting 3rd and 4th teams, and you can keep Nas and Jaden
a little more than that.
Right. I'm just hear me out. Just hear me out on this. Like, if you can keep Nas and Jaden, then it's like, of course you do it, right? Then it gets into like, well, that's not possible. You have to give up one of Nas or Jaden. Which, by the way, if Nas Reed, just a thought bubble, is as important to this franchise as you hear in reports and rumors, maybe he should start one day. I don't know. That's just like a thought I had. But the Jaden piece to me is the one that's really tough. And I think it comes down to just the growth that he's showed. Like, again, I'm not going to win any argument saying I wouldn't trade Jaden for Giannis. Giannis is so much better than Jaden, but he is older and he makes in the next 2 seasons, this season included, as much as Jaden makes over the duration of his 4-year contract. I think that matters, right? Like, I'm talking about a team that has 6.5 good players. You trade for Giannis. How many good players would the Wolves have if they have to pay the price that you outlined a couple days ago? And I will just say this. The one thing that drives me fucking crazy is like, well, then they'd be leaders in the buyout market. Put them in the group, put them in the chat. Hit me on Twitter. Who are all these great buyout guys historically that every year is like, oh, they got this guy, and it worked, and they had the chemistry figured out in 6 weeks, and then they went on a run. Like, if I have one more person tell me this is Dwayne Wade, Shaq 2.0 of that's when, the Heat won that title, like that was such a different era of basketball. So my con would be breaking up a duo, not even a trio of Jaden, Nas, and Ant, but a duo of Ant and Jaden that, Jaden's on a really, really good contract over these next 3.5 more years. I think it's a core that maybe the ownership group likes a little more than people give credit to. And like, they love the fact that they could build on this. So I would not put Jaden in a deal. if you can negotiate a deal that includes other players,
you can't. It's
then
not,
then I'm out.
That's not a
Then I'm out.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm out.
I mean, I generally, echo your sentiment. And when I talked about it and went through what I thought was a more realistic price than some of the prices that you see when you see screenshots of trades. And I mean, it's Giannis. It's gonna be an extremely painful trade for the Wolves or any team to make. And so, assuming an extremely uncomfortable price, it's something I've said from the jump I'm not super intrigued by. But there's huge pros to this, and I wanna lay that out too. The idea of adding him, and first is the idea that this roster just might not be it. Like we like this roster. I like this roster. I like Jaden. I love the trio of Jaden, Nas, Ant. I think Julius is fitting into it more and more. Rudy is critical to this team defensively, but this roster ultimately might not get very well. Might not get Ant to where he is wanting to go, where this team has expectations to go and be a championship team. And to that end, you got to consider the path not taken of the former MVP, who's 31 years old. Yes, has an injury history, but it's Giannis. I also think it's important to note, kind of economically here, that he's extension eligible this summer. And if the Wolves trade for him, and if the reporting of his desire to play with Anthony Edwards, to the degree that it's being reported, is true, then I think it's fairly reasonable to assume that if you trade for Giannis, you are getting him on an extension as well. And now he's on the Timberwolves for the rest of the 2020s and and beyond that. And him would be under contract long term. And that's really important in today's NBA, is to have great players under contract for a long time. If Giannis wants to re-sign with the Wolves and not the Bucks, he inherently has substantially more value to the Wolves. And if the price they have to pay to acquire Giannis simply meets the value of Giannis to the Bucks, then it's good business to acquire him from an asset valuation standpoint. It would be uncomfortable this season. The bench scored 13 points last night. I think they would find, if they trade for Giannis, I think they would find a way for the bench to score even less. And this roster would be out of whack. It would be top heavy. Studs and duds wouldn't even begin to start describing what this team is. But if you look at the trade for Giannis as more of a long-term investment, and you factor in the fact that Anthony Edwards is 24 years old, a long-term investment for another superstar player alongside Anthony Edwards, I don't know. We can't brush over that. And we can't get too caught up on Jaden McDaniels for that. Jaden McDaniels, who's playing probably his best basketball of his career right now. We both love Jaden and have loved watching his progression and the consistency he gives them on both sides of the floor. I mean, Finch's comments after the other game are just about him being a consummate pro, at 25 years old. That's not stuff to brush over, and it justifies what you're saying. I'm not saying the pros aren't just, or the cons aren't justified, but the pros, in theory, are justified as well. Again, what I just come back to is pros, cons, whatever. What's the feasibility of this thing happening, especially in the next 48 hours? I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think the Wolves are going to trade for Giannis, period. And it's been a fun conversation. It was fun talking about KD, but I think it's going to be the same thing. That would be my guess, is it's going to be the same thing we did with KD, where, around the deadline you're talking about it, and in the summer it's opened. It seems a little bit more feasible. And ultimately, it doesn't get across the finish line, but across the finish line would have some major pros that come with it. And also, the cons that you laid out.
I think you and I, more than any other guest you've had, talk a lot about age, and that's probably on me. But we do a lot, right, in this community of, man, Ant did that and he's only this age. And Ant did that and he's only this age. So when do you think Ant's prime is? We're just going to get a little frisky here, like, because he's 24, right? So a lot of people always say 26, 27, like maybe 28, he might be at the peak of his powers.
I'd say 26. Yeah.
Okay. So
I think you can hit your prime a little bit early. I think 27 is typically the number you say there. But I think for a superstar elite athlete, like, I think you enter your prime a little bit earlier. And I think, I think when we look back on it, we'll say mid 20s was Ant's prime, a little bit better than this.
And let's just split the baby, right? 26, 28. Let's say 27. Giannis would be 35 then. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm just
at 28, he'd be, be 33 when Ant's 26.
Right, yeah, and then 34 when Ant's 27. I think that's how it all works. I'm just saying,
but those are different things. If I would argue, I think you're setting it up to make it sound worse than it is. That, like,
I'm setting it up because if you Google Giannis Antetokounmpo injury, there's a really cool score, or a really cool website called flashscore.com, and it's a fucking scroll. Like, I'll send it to you in the chat. There's over 70 entries. And a lot of them dating back over the last 24 months are calf, knee, back. Okay. So
bad words.
I get it. Like, I get it, man. I just also think that if your analysis of this roster is that it has hit its mark, I think a lot of people think that right now with the coaching staff and the roster. The coaching staff has done as much as they can do. This is the Mark Jackson, Steve Kerr thing. And with the roster, like, the roster has taken them as much as it can, and they need to change the roster. Well, I think that's like when you and your partner have, like, hit a wall, and it's like, well, I guess we have to have a kid. It's like, well, you could do other things, right? Like, you could move, you could switch careers. Like, you could do other things with this roster that don't involve stripping it from 6.5 good players to 3 good players, and then banking on the fact that you're going to be this hot destination for Austin Rivers to come away from Peacock and sign with you. You know what I mean? Like, and he would love that, by the way. Austin Rivers, the Robbie Hummel Peacock experience has been great. NBA coverage has never been better. So I think we can both agree in the middle of this Venn diagram, pros and cons in the middle. Like, I think the roster has no chance to make a finals run or to win a title. This specific roster from top to bottom. But there's other ways to change that roster up that aren't essentially blowing out 2/3 of the house just to get Giannis. And again, I know he's Giannis. I know at full strength he's fantastic. But if you don't at least ask yourself, have we seen the best of Giannis? Then I don't know if you and I can have a conversation about it.
No, that's fair.
Because
I agree with that.
Because also too, like, I hear a lot of this. Well, Ant would love that, and Ant would love to the aggression of the front office and stuff. I think if you trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo, you do give yourself a better chance short term at a ring. And I also do think that you open up the box of Ant not being here at whatever age you said you think his prime is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not like a fucking scare tactic. Like, that's a real thing, because watch some of these other teams do it. Like, Giannis was 28, 29 when they, or, in his prime when they make the move for Dame, and they've won a title. And then the Dame thing, he's older and gets injured. He has all these calf injuries and stuff. And then it quickly, within 6 months, 12 months, it's done. And maybe I am risk averse. I'm just saying I would rather bank on having multiple really good players, some of them on really cost-controlled contracts, and trying to lean into this more rather than, but you and I were talking a little bit this too. Tim Conley is kind of a home runs or strikeouts guy. So I don't think that the steam here is fake. Like, the KD stuff was real. It ended up just KD not wanting to come here. I think this is real. Now, to your point, does it get done in 48 hours? I don't know, but I could see Tim Conley. I don't know. I've always thought this. I don't know if Tim Conley's going to be here when the Rob Dillingham picks convey. He doesn't seem like a guy that wants to be doing this that long. Like, that's not, I think that's a real concerned. So does he just want to maximize this roster and take one more big bite at an apple over the next 18 months? That could be a real thing, but I don't know.
Let me jump in on that because we were texting about this last night. And we were doing the home run swings, all in, whatever, choose your analogy, with Tim. And it is very fair to say that Tim Conley is a take big swings sort of guy. Now, I do think Tim is also and the front office is hyperlogical. What I said to you is if Tim saw the expected value of making an all-in move to be similar to the expected value of a long-term maneuver of looking at it this 5-8 years down the line, I do think if they were close, he would take the all-in win now, go now option, all things equal, 10 times out of 10. But not disproportionately so. You know what I'm saying? Not in a desperate sort of way. I don't think he would make a desperate move. They would look at it, they would run the numbers on it, and I don't think they would wish cast things. They would make a move based on the logic that they've lined out and compare it against the path not taken of trading for Giannis or whatever any other superstar X that they get that they can pursue. But do you understand the distinction I'm making when I said that last night, when I'm making right now? I don't think he's going to do something stupid, but he will do something big if it's equally of a similar or to equal value. I do believe that for some of the longevity type of stuff that you're talking about.
And again, I don't think he's just going to say, fuck it, Justin Jefferson's down there somewhere. But also, too, you make a move like this. I mean, we don't have to do then what happened. If Giannis has played 70 games or more once since 2018. A lot of high 60s on that basketball reference page, right? So, I mean, missing
eligible
13, 14 games. Yeah, he can make all the award ballots, but I'm just coming at it from a different perspective of, again, I totally know I'm going to get crushed for this, and I know I'm being risk averse, and I know I'm basically saying I wouldn't trade Jaden for Giannis, but I just think when they made the Rudy Gobert trade, a lot of people struggled with it, and they paid a very steep price, but I kind of came at it okay, they're expediting Ant's growth and development, and under no circumstances whatsoever can you argue that part, that was a home run. They forced Ant in a draft class where some of his other colleagues maybe didn't develop. I always make the LaMelo Ball thing, but he's in year 6 or 7. He still hasn't really played winning basketball. It worked. They got a winning player next to Ant. Is Rudy Gobert still the best player to put next to Ant moving forward over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years? I don't know. And maybe that's why you sniff around the Giannis stuff. But if you get Giannis Antetokounmpo, man, and he continues to just add lines to flashscore.com, that is the first domino into this kind of all being over, in my opinion. And again, what is it all about, right? It's about winning a championship. So I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I would rather take the diversified player roster, maybe take a different guy that we haven't mentioned, a Julius, a Rudy, I don't know, all the remaining assets you have to try to find other ways to, I mean, Naz Reid's been hooping last night aside, but he's been really good and Jaden's been really good. And it's maybe they just need one more thing sprinkled into that rather than getting rid of, to your price, 3 or 4 core players on this roster.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Falling Knife Brewing Company, and we would like to announce that we are doing a live show at Falling Knife on Friday, February 13th at 7 p.m. It'll be me and Britt Robson. We'll do a happy hour at 6 p.m. We'll be there hanging out, setting up, answering questions, and then at 7, we will probably 7 to 8 p.m. we'll do a live show where we'll take live listener questions that will show up on the podcast. As well, the Rising Stars game is on there. Can't miss that. We could watch that on the TVs and projector screens at Falling Knife. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens at the deadline. Could potentially be a new Wolves player to discuss being on the team. If they trade for somebody, whatever it is, we will be discussing it February 13th for a 7 p.m. live show at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Happy hour at 6 p.m. Come early, snag a seat because we're going to be indoors, not outside. If you've never come to a live show, of ours. Make this your first one. That's Folly Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. And over at Prize Picks, did you know that you can wager on Giannis Antetokounmpo's next team or his team after the trade deadline? And those odds are constantly moving, so I'm not going to rattle them off to you. But if you go over to the teams tab at Prize Picks, you will see they feel the most likely team Giannis is playing for after the deadline is Milwaukee. And it might surprise you how far down the list Minnesota is there. It's also Super Bowl week, Super Bowl Sunday, and you can make some Prize Picks lineups for the big game as well. Old friend Sam Darnold, more or less than 229.5 passing yards. Ramondre Stevenson, more or less than 50.5 rushing yards. There's also currently a free square on Drake May, where if he throws for 1 passing yard, you win that square. You know the deal. There's always something going on over at Prize Picks, and certainly Super Bowl week. If you'd like to play the Super Bowl, the NBA, or the trade deadline, you can do that all at Prize Picks. And if you don't yet have a Prize Picks account, all you have to do is put in the promo code DANE. When you sign up, you'll receive $50 in lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app using promo code DANE. Let's talk about Jaden a little bit because how he's playing, how he's played this season, because that's half the story here, right? And I got a clip from Dante I want to play from last night in the locker room. But Jaden made 5 of his 7 3-point attempts last night. Over his last 11 games, he's taken 48 threes, made 28 of them. That's 58% from 3. Over his last 7 games, he's taken 29 threes, made 20 of them. That's 69% from 3. And over his last 3 games, he's taken 17 threes and made 13 of them. That's 76% from 3. Something that I don't think is even fully downloaded in my overall valuation of Jaden McDaniels is this possibility that he's in fact a really good shooter, because I've watched him for the majority of his career prior to this season be ignored from the 3-point line. Shot 33% last year, 34%, and frankly it was a rough 33-34 at times. And I mean, I was always high on Jaden, but somewhat diluted based on the fact that he wasn't a shooter. I wouldn't have qualified Jaden as a shooter previously. And when you talk about roster builds and you talk about a team who has their current center who's never made a 3 in his career, you're getting 0 shoot, a not complete non-shooter from your center currently. Your backup center, who we like, Ant might be 38 by the time Yohan makes the 3.
So Giannis would be 46.
Yeah. Right. Well,
I don't know. Keep going.
Yeah. I think it's so huge for Jaden to be a shooter for this roster construction with Rudy and down the line, because I do struggle with, in today's NBA, the roster construction of 3 shooters and two guys you don't have to guard out there. And Jaden is completely shifting that narrative. And that's not what he's best at offensively, is shooting at all. His best thing is in transition, in space, and ability to finish with length that he has. And I asked Dante about that last night, specifically, Memphis is hiding Ty Jerome on Jaden. We've seen that many times over the years of a small teams opting to put a small guard on Jaden, and 2-3 years ago, Jaden wouldn't punish that. Now he's punishing that look consistently, and last night was the most recent example about that. And I asked Dante about directing the ball to Jaden more and taking advantage of those situations now, when a couple years ago you would try to kind of stray away from it. Here's Dante. To direct to him to kind of take advantage of those matchups.
You say point guard?
What?
You said point guard?
I did this time.
No, I think it's just within the flow. I think we have an understanding, this unit has been playing together for a little while now, that we have an understanding of where guys like to get the ball. he is very, very deadly in transition. He's very, very deadly in the, double pick and roll. He's getting downhill. Like, just when he sees space, with him and his length and his athleticism and his IQ, just in space. If we can get him in space as much as we possibly can, he's just making the right play.
And that's what he's going to get even better at, Kyle, right? Like, Jaden is going to become even more of a threat in space. Honestly, not all that dissimilar to Giannis, when we picture Giannis in transition, in that sort of way. Jaden's a couple years away from his prime as well. So I don't know. I mean, Jaden is for me personally is at a completely different level than I would have said 3-4 months ago. I would have been much more open to a Giannis or superstar player X trade that includes Giannis 4 months ago, but I'm seeing a level from Jaden McDaniels now that I think makes it fair to question it and fair to make him be the blue chip guy that you put in a trade, for another piece. And I understand that's what it's going to cost to get Giannis, but like you said, there's other paths not taken. You can lower the bar from Giannis, still say we need to add something, but do it so Jaden isn't in the trade. You're not going to get Giannis then, but you're going to get, you theoretically, maybe once you get some more picks back this summer, could still get something of real value. And the idea of Ant, Jaden, and star or very good player X, that's as intriguing to me as this Giannis path, at least.
You just mentioned the word now, and I know you didn't mean it like that, but he has been pretty much playing at this trajectory, like getting better and better all season. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like a 2-week span where it's like you joked last night, Jaden gets his name in trade rumors, and all of a sudden he starts hooping like crazy. But he is having 3x the best season of his career. Like, it's not even close to any other seasons he's ever had. But when you're saying all that, and you know how much I love age and birthdays, I think he is now and will continue to be. Like, I don't think there's a floor that's going to drop out. I personally don't, because you've seen it for so long. I think he is the second best player on a championship team. Now, you get Giannis. Now you have two guys that are just way, way better. Like, that's a 1-2, as Jay said the other day. Like, you have two of the top 7 guys in the league. But I couldn't help listening to you talk about that and be like, yeah, this is Minnesota's Chet Holmgren on steroids, right? Like, Jaden's only like 18, 19 months older than Chet. And Shai's 3 years older than Ant. So we're still, by the way, 30 minutes in, as we talk about Jaden. This is all about Giannis to me. And we're still like, you have two guys now that really, really complement each other. Do you need to trade Jaden to go get a Giannis, or do you just need to use anyone else on the roster or assets or whatever to go try to find a J-Dub, or to try to find a lesser piece to kind of put around those two? Because the Jaden stuff is, and I'm obviously been biased his whole career, but it's like special. Like, it's not just now the offense or the 3-point shooting or the play creation or the ability to get in transition. He's also an all defensive guy. And that's like where he's Chet with a handle, or Chet with more offensive game right now. So I just circle back again. It's like, I don't think this iteration of the Timberwolves has any chance to go round for round with OKC and Denver. Maybe Houston, we'll see come playoff time, without making some sort of move. But I don't think it has to be like, there are other moves you can make rather than just going for Giannis. So back to the Jaden stuff, it's been incredible. I mean, it really has been incredible. You don't really see guys, we always kind of talk about fringe first round guys. Like, he was drafted after Balmero. He was drafted, 28th. And for him to have this meteoric of a rise while still making like 70th most money in the league, he's making 25 per over the next couple of seasons. Like, that's a really important piece to build a championship roster. And it would be a bummer for me to see them break that duo up, because it seems like every year that they have played together and they have a really close connection. And I think that stuff matters too, in terms of trying to keep homegrown guys in a market, that they just continue to play well off of one another. And he is, to Finch's point, kind of drama free. Like, I think he probably regrets punching that wall more than ever, because that's stained on his Wikipedia page. But outside of that, like, he doesn't get technicals anymore, right? He's not really fighting guys. Like he's the guy that's breaking
Almost
shit
did at
up.
the end of the game last night, though.
Yeah, that was different. Doing the officiating in that one was a little different, but I don't know. I totally get that this is back to the Family Guy analogy of like, do you want the boat or do you want the mystery box? Giannis Antetokounmpo is a boat, and I think that boat's got a lot of miles on it, if that's even a thing. Again, like a lot of Basketball Reference, 75, 80 games in those first 5-6 years. Now it's in the 60s. Kind of makes you wonder, by the way, as we talk about what the Spurs could look like in the playoffs, in a playoff matchup, what the Thunder could look like. I do ask myself when I see these teams that are rumored to be going for Giannis, why don't the Thunder go get him? Why don't the Spurs go get him? Why don't the Rocket? Like, do they have some of those same kind of medical concerns that I have?
You know why? You know why? I looked this up. You know what his usage rate is? 36.2% this season. That was his usage rate last season. You know, Ant, think about how much Ant has the ball. Ant's usage rate is 31.1. Think about how much Julius Randle has the ball and how much the Wolves use him. His usage rate is 27.6. You know, it's I mean, to answer the Spurs, Thunder, whatever other teams, it's Giannis is incredible, but is completely dysregulating to the style of basketball that you're currently playing. And the Thunder are playing the best basketball in the NBA, and the Spurs are, you know, right there with them. You would need to reconfigure the boat at like mid, you know, in the middle of the water here, right? Of the 25-26 season. And again, that's ultimately why I think this is he's going to get traded in the offseason, because I can't see a team who's good that's wanting to take on that operation in the middle of the season. The interesting thing about the Wolves, though, is their boat's kind of leaky themselves, you know, like they seem in more need of insurance or reinforcements or whatever than Oklahoma City and San Antonio and those other teams, you know, do as well.
But you and Jace had a really good conversation about this earlier in the week. If Giannis comes in, and I go back to that, I don't like the Dwayne Wade Shaq analogy of the Heat that one year when they won a title, but it seemed like at the time, from my memory, that was over almost 15 years ago, like that Shaq came in and was like, this is Dwayne Wade's team, and I'm going to do all the other stuff you need. If Giannis comes in and has a higher usage rate than Ant, just that's the only statement I can give you. Like, do you think that's good?
No, and I said yesterday with Chase, I don't think Ant would like that. Like,
but I think we should talk about it then, like again, or at least mention it again for the second straight day, because there's just a little too much my GM 2K shit going on. Yeah. And if Giannis comes into the team and we don't even think Ant's in his prime yet, I don't know, putting a governor on this boat that is Anthony Edwards seems fucked up. So I think those are some of the other things you have to weigh too.
Last thing too, you talk about breaking up the duo of Ant to Jaden, and I would extend it to breaking up the trio of Ant, Jaden, and Nas, and a factor. And I've asked Nas and Jaden about this in the last week of if they think they're playing the best basketball of their career, and both Nas and Jaden have said yes. And you know, that wasn't a given. Like, I don't know. I didn't come into this season necessarily thinking Jaden would be much better than he was last year, and I didn't think, and I thought Nas would, you know, maybe be like his 6 man of the year thing 2 years ago. But both of them are at a different level now. They are playing their best basketball of their career. They're both shooting it for sure better than they ever have, and it makes trading for Giannis. That makes trading for Giannis less appetizing because they're going to be the pieces that are going on.
To be fair, you could argue that maybe this is the right time to sell high. You know what I mean? Like if you don't think you can extrapolate this out and they're going to continue to get better, I just am in the camp of the development curve has continued to go up for both of those players, that I would bank on that rather than the alternative.
Today's show is brought to you by Surfshark, and let's talk about something that's probably a little bit more exposed than you think, and that is your online data. I know I'm genuinely getting to the point where I'm like freaked out by how specific my ads are getting that are delivered to my phone, and that's where Surfshark's VPN comes in. It's your go-to solution for secure internet access. Surfshark creates a virtual private network that encrypts your entire internet activity, hiding your IP address and making your online activity invisible. When I'm using public Wi-Fi, like at an airport when I'm traveling to these games. Surfshark prevents anyone from trying to snoop on my data. Using Surfshark's VPN also allows me access to geo-blocked content. So like when I'm on the road right now, I'm able to watch games out of market. I can watch anywhere in the country without being blacked out regionally. But my personal favorite add-on is called Alternative ID, which generates a brand new online identity and email address for me to use. So when websites ask for my information, I give them this stunt double details of this identity, and my real personal data stays completely private. You get all that alongside lightning fast VPN speeds and privacy protection for unlimited devices on a single account, giving you the complete toolkit to stream, shop, and surf securely. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. It's completely risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to surfshark.com/DaneMoore or use code DaneMoore at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. That link and code are in the show notes and episode description below. Let's talk a little bit about last night.
Do we have to?
Yes. It's the latest flipping the switch issue. And let's just play a couple clips here because I'm curious what you thought about Finch's answer here in the post-game press conference when John asked him about that.
It's just defensively, what were the...
Yeah, I mean, we struggled with all the movement, the closeout contain in the first half in particular, and then in the second half, it was a lot of fouling. Especially when we tightened the game up, we gave them eight straight free throws when we got to a 4-point game.
Did you see a slippage in just competitiveness overall with you guys?
At times, yeah, sure. Certainly early on.
How do you kind of draw that out of them, or what do they have to do?
Ask them. It's on them. They got to come and put the work on. It can't be a sometimes thing.
So we did ask them in the locker room afterwards. I'll play that clip as well, but we didn't talk about this last night. I'm curious what you thought about that Finch response.
I think if you just listen to that while driving, you're already a little anti-Finch. Your first reaction is that he's lost the locker room. I just think that's kind of a general way to break that down. I don't think that's the case, just talking to people, but
like the players.
Conversely, though, it's like, but is he able to get through to them? Because there's a difference between like losing the locker room where everyone's just like tuning him out versus does he have it? I mean, I feel like that was Finch being like, I have no more bullets to fire. Like, I'm going to put this out there. It'll publicly challenge them. They'll have a good film session today in Canada before they play the Raptors. I think the last time they beat the Raptors, Mark Madsen was playing on the
2004. I was talking to Ant about that in the locker room last night.
Yeah, that's tough.
We never won a game in Toronto. And I was like, because I remembered it was a long time ago. So I looked it up on my phone. I was like, it's 2004. And Bones was like, was KG on the team? I was like, yeah. He was.
But I mean, that's, the Giannis stuff is time sensitive because we got 48 hours to figure it out. Otherwise, you kick the can down the road till the summer. But this is, without a doubt, inflatable tube man, hands in the air. This is the biggest issue facing this team. And it's been the biggest issue facing this team all year. And I think it's why more people have soured on Finch and his inability to play certain guys or whatever. But there's just a disconnect right now between the players and their ability to bring it every night and the coaching staff. And to me, it sums up why Mike Conley plays. Because, I know Finch loved to be like, hey, look at that plus minus. Mike was awesome in the Grizzlies win the other night when he didn't score. And it's like, okay. But last night he didn't score and he looked real bad. And he can't get by.
He didn't say it was because of the plus minus in that.
No, but he mentioned it. It's just
he did. He mentioned the plus. I'm sorry, I didn't.
I thought I'm pretty sure he did. I think
Twitter started saying that.
We'll check the tape. Cooper, go look that up. I just think it's a real big issue, man. Like to boil it down, I'm
gonna play. I'm gonna play the clip. I'm gonna play the clip. This is from after the first Memphis game. This Conley thing's important.
It was outstanding. He didn't score it, but he did a lot of really great things out there. Plus 18 indicates that. All right.
I was wrong.
Shout out Wolves Twitter. We did it, baby.
You did it. My bad.
No. But we're talking about the players and their inability to bring it every night and play defense. We're talking about the coach calling them out publicly which is a real bullet to fire. But to me, it does all come back to why Mike Conley plays, because I think he's like, at least that's a coach on the court that can maybe get them to fucking realize like what they're not doing. And when it doesn't happen, then it's so easy to be like, why don't you throw young guys into the mix? Why don't you throw more juice? Why don't you throw more firecrackers into the well and see if it sparks them? But man, like, this isn't a trend anymore. This is not, I know your favorite phrase, this is not the dog days of the NBA season. This is a team that just, for whatever reason, when they leave the Ritz and they get on the bus and they get to the arena, they just coast. And now you're coasting multiple games, 6, 7, 8 games that people listen to this can think of. That's like, you win half of those. You're the 3 seed, but you're not. And now you're battling one more loss in Toronto. Shout out to Mark Madsen. Now you're 7th again, and now you're in the play-in. And then it creates these issues of, do we need to trade for Giannis? Do we need to blow it up? So you were there last night. You got to talk to Finch, and you got to be in the locker room. But man, like, I am just so tired of Dante DiVincenzo, who has, I think, stepped up as a leader and been pretty good in these post-game settings, saying the same stuff over and over about how it's on us. Because that's the one thing you and I have talked about is, why do all the players always say, the coaches tell us what to do, we just don't do it? What is that about?
I'll play that clip. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I get this is a played out thing, but it is what the players are saying. And if they weren't, we would note that as well. Yeah, here's Dante on flipping the switch.
Shit, we waited till we were down 20 to put the work into the game. And it's too late by that chance, or by that time. You know, we just have to respect our opponent for a full 48 and stop getting up for the big games and not getting up for the, you know, the teams that, you know, we have to respect night in and night out.
I asked Finch like how you do that, how he brings that out of you guys, and he said to ask you guys, like, just where do you guys collectively kind of?
Yeah, I mean, it's internally. I said this before during that losing streak. I mean, the coaches, they put the game plan together, they put everything together. At some point, like, it's up to you to get ready for the game. It's up to you to turn that switch on at the start of the game, and for us to play for a full 48. We understand that, you know, shots might not fall, and, you know, certain stuff's going to happen throughout the game, but we've shown it when, you know, when we play with physicality, when we play together, and when we play with high energy, we win a lot of games against really good teams, and we have to do that. That has to be a habit. It can't just be a, you know, sometimes thing.
It's funny, he used the exact same, it can't just be a sometimes thing. That's exactly what Finch said. And Dante was not in the press conference room, which in Memphis is connected to a bathroom, by the way. Did you see that clip I put out there?
That was my favorite clip.
So funny.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know. You've been there now for a couple of days. You've been around the team. You've been there for an off day. It's just, there's really like not much. There isn't more meat on the bone here to dissect or chew on. But it's basically how I will remember the 25-26 Timberwolves. And it's not like this season alone they've had bad losses. Or, I mean, they've actually improved their record against bad teams compared to what you think about 2 or 3 years ago. But it is beyond frustrating now that they're at like the 90th percentile. Like, if you just go a little harder and play a little more together, all the stuff that Dante said, like, now you're one of the top 3-4 teams in the league, and you have this different edge to you. And it just drives me bleeping crazy when you hear them talk about, like, well, they're bored or, you know, like, as if they've ever done anything. Like, I can champion these back-to-back Western Conference Finals runs. It's like, that's cool for this organization in 36 years and stuff. But it's like, very few guys on this roster, other than Dante, like, have actually done something noteworthy. And I think that's why it's interesting to hear him talk about it after the game of, like, you know, he's not going to call out Julius. He's not going to call out Ant. But if you decipher the comments, like, I don't think he's talking about Mike, right? I don't think he's talking about Yohan. Like, when will those two guys, who are the best 2 players on the team by a fairly wide margin, I still think, Ant and Julius, like, when will those guys come together to be like, Ant says all the right things after these losses, but he doesn't do the right things in the 48 minutes that precede them. And the same with Julius. So I don't know. That might just be how this story ends. And that might be how this roster hits a wall and breaks into a million pieces. But the fact that we're still doing this and we did it at Thanksgiving and we did it the day after Halloween, it's the most frustrating part of what's been a frustrating season, despite them, being 13, 14 games over 500 or whatever.
I want to pull on the thread a little bit more here and say that the energy and effort element missing it costs them more defensively than it does offensively. That's where you see it show up. And I mean, this is one of the worst defensive games of the season. If you just talk about how many points they allowed, if you do it by per possession, the Wolves defensive rating in this game was 139.2, which means they allowed almost 1.4 points per time Memphis had the ball. Think about that. That's obviously a really high number there. It was their fourth worst defensive performance of the season. The worst was the second game of the season in LA against the Lakers. Luka had 49 points on 23 shots. You remember that game?
Mm-hmm.
The next worst was that noon game at Cleveland earlier this month, where they played Cleveland 2 in a row, one in Minneapolis where they won, and then 2 days later in Cleveland day game. Third worst game of the defensive game of the season from a defensive rating standpoint was when they played at MSG early November, lost to the Knicks. And then last night against Memphis was their fourth worst defensive game of the season. The Brooklyn Nets are 27th in the NBA in defensive rating. Their defensive rating is 119.8. Again, so that means the Nets allow just under 1.2 points per possession for the season. Bad. The Wolves have had a single game defensive rating over 119.8 in 11 games now this season. They are 1-10 in those games. And the only time they've won a game where they've defended that poorly was that circus of a game in New Orleans that went to overtime. When this team does not defend at even a league average level, they lose, period. And they cannot defend at a league average level without the requisite energy and effort. They can't overcome their defense in that sort of way because this team is uniquely tied to their defense. Their offense is uniquely tied to their defense in that getting stops and getting out in transition is what makes this team elite offensively. And so when that goes away, now you just have a roster that has Rudy Gobert in the half court, who's a limited option. You have a team in the half court who doesn't move the ball and their body well consistently. They need defense to be able to score enough to outscore their opponents and win games. And I just think that's an alarming stat that they are 1-10 in games where they have a defensive rating of 119.8 or higher. If they defend worse than the Brooklyn Nets, they've lost 10 of their 11 games.
Can you say that again?
No.
That's correct. I mean, and their two best players are offensive players. I mean, I think it's easier. I mean, the offense comes so easily to Julius and Ant that it just goes back to the energy thing and what the coach said and what Dante said. Like, it takes real effort for offensive players to play defense, and they just don't do it on a consistent basis, and it leads to them in a really messed up Brooklyn Nets stat. Because the other guy, I mean, Rudy Gobert's had a bunch of bad games, and he's gotten cooked by some really good centers, and Jaden has missed some rotations and stuff. Like, those guys at least bring a defensive mentality to a team that throughout this season, by the way, it's been funny to listen to these clips. Like, they still do hang their hat on being a defensive identity. Like, if you had to point at one of the two options, like the corgi who picks the Super Bowl, it's like they will all tell you, like, we're a defensive team. It's like, okay, come on now. Listen to the stat that Dane just said. So how are you a defensive-minded team, or how is that your identity when you don't bring it night in and night out? And that is what separates them from some of these other teams that are just have more of a chance to win a title or make a run.
That's a quarter of their games. That's a quarter of their games this season, just about. I mean.
So do you think? I mean, I still think this is the last pod you're doing before the trade deadline. So it does kind of circle me back. I just saw a really cool tweet online about like 5-man lineups that have gotten the most burn together this season from Basketball University, and the 5-man lineup of the Wolves starters: Ant, Dante, Jaden, Julius, and Rudy. plus 8.6 net rating, played 1,050 possessions. It's like 300 more than the best 5-man lineup for Detroit or the Rockets or the Clippers or anything. To me, it comes back to this idea of the roster as it is from top to bottom has no chance to make a run. But does that mean you have to blow up the starting 5 or blow up a chunk of the roster, or do you just need to go make a lesser move? Any move you make that is not Giannis is going to be considered in the short term, I think, a loss because you didn't get the big boat, right? Like you just got a jet ski. But there's a chance that a jet ski might really help turn this thing into like, I don't know. I can't watch again last night.
Specifically the bench, right? Like
yeah.
it's and I do hear some of the frustration with Finch or the ask them, and it's like part of it. There is a responsibility of the coach, right? And to enforce
100%.
I do think that his hands are somewhat tied in how to enforce currently with this roster, right? Like the way, if it was high school basketball, it's like Julius go sit on the bench or Ant go sit, Jaden, whatever, go sit on the bench. You know who's coming in? Like it's Bones, it's Jalen Clark. It's like he doesn't have like the depth to be able to enforce, at least from a minutes standpoint. What Finch has the ability to do is to chew him out, which they tell us about all the time, and that works. So I guess that to some extent, that's good coaching. The test, I think, will be is how Finch enforces this once the Wolves have traded for a player who bolsters the bench, or at least once Terrence Shannon Jr. comes back and gives you another option of a player who at least theoretically gives you something on both offense and defense. People can point to Rob, I guess, but there's just not a lot down there, on the bench beyond the guys that are playing right now. I mean, Yohan, sure, and I get there's some there. It could be a little bit more. It could enforce a little bit more in that way, but it's not like there's a good guy sitting at the end of the bench just waiting for his opportunity, like Leonard Miller. Like it's not.
And that's why this trade deadline is so fascinating, because
exactly.
when you asked me a couple of weeks ago, like, what do you think they should trade for? And I think my really smart analysis was an athlete. But I did say, I want a guy like whoever because I will just put it kind of bluntly. If they don't make a trade before the deadline, to me, that is a Scott Layden level failure. Like if you think this is good enough, like if you think Bones Highland, who has given them sparks, is a real closing option in the second round of a playoff series, like we don't see eye to eye. And I've already told you what I think about Mike. Like, it'd be great to have him in my fantasy league. He can't get by guys, and he's going to give you his all out there. But there's a lot of stuff. Like last night, he short-armed a couple of threes. Like it's great when he does all the other stuff, man, but they also do kind of need scoring sometimes. Like they do need a guy that can give him 8 points. Mike's had 10 points once since Thanksgiving. That's not great. But it would be awesome, to what you just said, to get a guy in the next 48 hours, whoever it may be, and they, in my opinion, they have to make a move. Finch has to consider closing with. And I think that would change a dynamic a little bit, because right now, with a bullet, I would say 4 of the guys that are going to close. Or, I mean, I guess 3, right? They're going to close with Jaden. They're going to close with Ann. They're going to close with Dante. And it's either going to be 2 of Nas, Julius, and Rudy. And a lot of times it is maybe Nas and Julius. But if you go get another guard or a wing guy, that does put pressure on some of these guys. Like, I probably need to bring more energy, because to your point, like if Ant's not playing good defensively and he's still an offensive just vortex and he's so awesome, he has no fear of getting benched. And Ant and Julius won't get benched, but like you could say that for Dante, right? How many 1-for-9 games have there been from Dante where it's like, I know he's doing all the other stuff, but okay, Kobe White, like you're giving us a better chance tonight to win, so you're going to close, or another guy in the perimeter, or another big. So
how do they get that? How do they get that? I mean, there's 3 second-round picks, a 28 pick swap, which is not going to have a lot of value. A pick swap when you have Anthony Edwards in his prime in 2028, like that's not a lot there. There's Rob Dillingham. Like, I don't know if the Wolves have enough assets to be able to get the caliber of player that you're talking about that can that can close. I mean, maybe that's enough for Kobe White. We don't know that. Like, let's circle back and see what these things all ended up costing in 48 hours. But given the limitations of their assets and given the players that you don't want to trade, I'm not sure you can go get that. It's like if your refrigerator broke and you don't have $4,000 to buy a new refrigerator, like you might be using ice for a little bit, you know? We need to remember that this is different from an asset standpoint of what they have. The Wolves are the most bereft in terms of assets team in the entire NBA, which makes the whole Giannis thing crazy that this is even a conversation, and why I've never given it a whole bunch of credence. But I'm even talking about getting Kobe White. And sure, you could see these fake people who are aggregating and pretending to be reporters on Twitter saying, oh, this is the price of this and that. Bullshit. They don't know. They don't know. They don't know, especially whatever. We don't know what the price is. And I am skeptical that the Wolves have the assets internally right now to be able to go and get the player of the caliber that you are talking about, who I agree would be a big difference maker in certain ways. I don't know if you can get Kobe White for that.
And I only say Kobe White because that's a popular name that aggregates well. But great fridge analogy. Great fridge analogy. The fridge does seem broken. 6.5 good pieces of the fridge. But I don't even think they have ice. Like, I think they just put the food outside and they're like, God, I hope it's fucking cold this week. I don't get in the mix of the slop of who could they get, but like, I think Dennis Schroeder, who just got traded in a weird little deal, like he would be a guy who could close games, right? Like I am not even looking at those big name things. I'm looking like, can you get a guy who can play real basketball minutes? And I've been pretty
I agree with that. Isn't that a different level? Isn't that a different level? Isn't Dennis Schroeder a level below what you're talking about a guy who can close a game, right? That is he better than Dante? Are you ever closing with Dennis Schroeder over Dante?
No, but could you close a game where it's like, hey, Julius just has DMV energy tonight, and now you're closing with in a certain matchup against a small team like Schroeder, Dante, Ant, Jaden, and Rudy, right? Like
I'd rather close with DMV Julius in that situation. Personally, I mean, I get we can have different opinions on this, but I mean, I hear what you're saying. I don't think Schroeder or those type of guys are that big of a needle mover. And even Kobe White, like you're getting no defense. What we just talked about is Brooklyn. It's his individual defensive rating if he comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves is going to be 119.8. You're not getting defense from Kobe White. Like,
but then I think we're at an hour now, but then I think you do take a step back of like, so what is the plan? Like, I think we at least
no move or just like a Monte.
Then that's closing your fucking mouth and not even looking at the apple, because you don't have a real bite at the apple here with what they're doing. I mean, there's just, come on, man. Like
I agree. I'm not arguing that.
Come on, man. But just in general, like, come on, man. They're not going to beat a Spurs team or a Rockets team that probably will make an aggressive move, or a Thunder team or a Denver team getting 18 minutes a night in the playoffs from Mike and Bones. Like, they're just not going to do that. We all agree. I think they probably agree. But right now, to your point, like, there's not many other options to throw out there. So, yeah, I don't know.
The summer's a different thing. And we talk about acquisition, like that you get that 2033 pick access to it. They have their own 2026 pick that they could trade on draft night. Like,
but then that's my bigger question of like, do you wait 5 months?
I don't know.
Or do you become sellers? You know what I mean? Like, do you say like, okay, if we want to have a bigger bite at this apple next summer, 2027, like when the playoffs and the finals are, do we unload Nas for assets? Do we unload Julius right now at a high point? Is that why we're in the Giannis mix? Because I mean, I don't know if anyone who's been on your show has really talked about, like, I don't even know Giannis's timeline with this calf thing. I know he diagnosed it for 4 to 6 weeks, but like, if they get Giannis on Thursday, does he play on Friday?
No.
So,
no.
If you get Giannis for this season, you are punting.
Well, I mean, I don't know when he would be back. I
don't either. I should have looked this up. Like,
I mean, and I don't think that's out there exactly.
So, but if you trade Giannis at the price that you have put out there, which makes a lot of sense because you're actually connected to this shit. And he's out for 3 to 4 more weeks or reevaluation in 3 to 4 more weeks. Like, you're just putting Ant out there with Mike. Like, so you're going to lose a bunch of, and I get, big picture. Now you're trying to sign him to an extension and Giannis retires in the Timberwolves jersey. I get all that stuff.
But real. That's why I don't think this is real. I think this is all preamble to the summer. I don't know that to be certain, but that's it. This doesn't line up. Am I wrong? Like, what and I know, and everybody in the Wolves front office says, yes, we're aggressively going after him. And they've clearly talked to all the reporter people and they'll be like, yeah, if we can get Giannis, we're going to go get him. That doesn't mean it's close to happening, like.
And that's why, again, this has no chance of happening. So I don't know if it makes for bad podcasting, but it's where I'm at. And I don't mean Julius isn't the scapegoat for any of this.
I don't know.
Julius isn't the scapegoat for any of this. And, Rudy's not the scapegoat for any of this. But if there's a lot of smart people in that front office, and if they truly think that what they rolled out there in Memphis last night with what I deem 6.5 good players is capable of playing into June, prove me wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't think I think that literally has a 0% chance. So that's why I say you got to make a move. But if you don't think that you can get the Kobe White or that's going to move the needle much, and you think Dennis Schroeder can't close, I wonder if they have conversations about, like, can we look ourselves in the mirror? And this has been the gap year philosophy and all this stuff. Like, can we ever put our pride aside, take a step back to set ourselves up to take 2 steps forward this summer when some of those assets grow on trees with the 2032 pick or next season? Does that mean you sell at the deadline?
Yeah. No, I'm glad we haven't talked about that. I mean, we should at least discuss what that would look like. The most obvious sell, I'm talking about like a sell of a positive asset, right? Would be, I think Rob still somewhere would be on a rookie contract, could still be viewed as a positive asset that you could get something back for and you could sell him for that reason. But I think we know that's not going to be a needle moving sale. Other options that we've already went through are Jaden and Nas, and we went through the reasons for why, given the age and fit with Ant in particular, make them extremely uncomfortable sales if you're being sellers. And the place to look if they were to decide to be seller, like somewhat sellers in this way, would be Julius Randle. And in part, given his age, pretty solid contract, having one of his best years of his career, and the fact that the Wolves have a power forward on the bench, the best bench power forward in the NBA in Nas Reed. Like, you have a replacement in place there. Now, you and I both know there was not a big market out there for Julius Randle this summer, and that's why he signed a 3-year, $100 million contract, which is not a lot of money for a player that has the resume that Julius has. If you're having the seller conversation, I think it's about Julius. I struggled to find the feasibility in that as well, because do the exercise, because I've spent some time on this. I thought about the Clippers a little bit last night after the Harden thing popped up, but like, as good as Julius Randle is, it's hard to find a team where you would go, Julius Randle is a really good fit on this team. And it's actually kind of similar to what we were talking about with Giannis, where it's the style of play, the usage, whatever. They're not really somebody that fits in. It's a type of player that you fit around. And that's what I think makes Julius a tricky asset, to find someone out there who would really see it in that way. But the contract's good. He's playing pretty well. He's playing well this season. And if they were to be sellers, that's what I would look at there.
And sellers is probably as stupid of a phrase as gap year. I shouldn't even say sellers, but like, you can't have this conversation now, an hour in, talking about a southpaw, and not at least reflect on what another deal that's out there of, like, the Clippers are the hottest team in 2026, and they're built to win now. Like, they have to go win a title right now with the guys on their roster. They're not allegedly selling by putting James Harden out there. They're pivoting from getting a guy who's James Harden into, like, maybe we go solve our long-term point guard thing by getting a Darius Garland. So I don't think they're going to trade Julius Randle to the Pelicans for 2 first-round picks. But can you, if you
2 players for Julius Randle though?
That's like if we have 6.5 good players, can you turn Julius Randle, I know you just said it like you did with D'Lo, into two lesser players that then give you more depth, give you more options to close with in a playoff run. And again, not to pick on Julius, because I don't think he is all of the team's issues, but you do kind of pick on Julius because you also have $100 million power forward on this team that everyone within the organization is like, we love this guy. And that's why I joked an hour ago of like, well, maybe he should finally start. Like maybe he would look nice next to Rudy Gobert. So it's not like you take this hole out and like, well, we don't have now Leonard Miller's got to check in. You have a really good option at the 4 that fits well with Jaden. Yeah. Those two guys are playing the best basketball of their career. There is a young trio. Like that to me is an option that I would look into. I highly doubt they do. Like I highly doubt they do, but back to the age thing.
I asked Finch about Randle, not making the All-Star team before the game. And this is the other side of the coin, is the importance that Randle has to this team, which he does still have heavy importance for all the other reasons that we talked about, Nas, whatever. And Finch really likes Randle and playing Julius Randle ball. So the other side of this Sellers conversation with him is the value that he does currently provide. And in the coach's eyes, which I know not everybody agrees with, but it's important that this is the coach's opinion of the player. I didn't send you this clip. Listen to this. It's interesting. Finch on Randle.
Was not selected as an all-star reserve, but I just wondered if 50 games in you could kind of summarize what Julius has meant to this team this season.
Yeah, sir. We were disappointed that he wasn't selected as an all-star. Certainly worthy of that this year. He's had an incredible season to date, and he's in many ways, I think he's our most important player because everything that we asked him to do. Certainly he's a MVP caliber guy, but when we need Julius to do a lot of things offensively. Create pace, create shots for his teammates, score, create next action basketball, rebound, take some matchups, be super physical, play in the post, play on the perimeter, handle and pick and roll. Like nobody has a longer checklist of things that we need him to do. And he plays every single night, as most of our guys do, which is what we were very proud of. And, I think he's I know he's a little beat up, a little banged up, and I'm sure he's a little disappointed that he didn't get recognized for the great season he's having, but it's another kind of challenge in the West. It's such a deep conference with so many great players, and there's a lot of teams that are having good seasons. So,
is that checklist longer this season than it was last season?
I do think a little bit longer, yeah, for sure. I think, with certainly with like not starting a traditional point guard, it puts him probably a little bit more on his plate.
That doesn't sound like a player that they can afford to trade. And you and I might disagree with that a little bit, but I don't know if I do disagree with that. I mean, the checklist is long. Like we see.
I don't disagree with that part.
Yeah. Go ahead. You go. What do you disagree with?
You can't say he's the most important player on the team. And I'm not even talking about like, I don't think that ruffled any. You can't say that. That's not true. He's, by the way, just if we're going to keep hammering home Google searches of player and then the word age, Julius is 7 days older than Giannis. So all of my concerns about Ant's prime being 27 3 years from now, Julius is 34. But again, like if this organization just wants every year to have an at bat and see if they can go yard and win a title, okay, like I guess sign me up. But I don't know, man. I don't agree with anything there. I do agree with the checklist part. I think there's a lot of on his plate. But then I guess, I work in finance and there's a lot of audits. Like, is he crushing that checklist on a nightly basis? Like is he hitting enough things on that grown checklist to put them in a position to be the most important player on the team?
Yeah. Not against Jaren Jackson Jr., not against the Oklahoma City Thunder, not against.
How do you play in June if you can't do it against the Thunder?
I don't know. It's
that.
I mean, that's what my thing. I think I've appreciated Julius Randle's season as much as anybody in the Wolves media space, but I do constantly, as listeners know, bring up the fact of the drop off in his statistical output when he does not enter a game as a walking mismatch, a walking advantage. He's not that advantage against the Thunder. We've gone through what his I think he's shooting 20% from 2 against the Thunder this season. I need to double check that, but it's not good. And then, against Jaren Jackson Jr., the first game, Jr. doesn't play, and Randle's awesome. 27-7 and 7 of 12 from 2, 4 or 5 from 3. Jackson plays last night, and that efficiency drops. You remember the previous game where they lost to Memphis at Target Center? It was the Randle and Jackson running into each other thing, and Jackson won. That's the tricky part of Julius Randle is in the aggregate, the numbers are there, and more often than not, the boxes on the checklist are checked. But the likelihood that they will be checked in a playoff setting is lower. That is a fact. Not zero. I mean, look, I was skeptical about Julius's ability to be impactful in the Golden State series, and he proved that wrong. He was effective in the Golden State series. He was obviously awesome in the Lakers series. But teams a little bit more defensively minded have a matchup for him where they don't need to bring 2. It limits him. It limits his ability to be the guy who checks all the boxes on that list. And that's a truth to the Julius Randle conversation just as much as it's a truth that he's provided serious value for this team as a player who's played in all 51 games that they've played thus far this season and is relatively consistent in that role. It's both.
Nope. Yep. And I will just add one thing because I love those basic numbers. So to Finch's point that he's played in all these games, that's like showing up to work every day. But did you actually get shit done? Mm-hmm. I think sometimes that's a lazy stat. But we played in all 51. I don't know how many of those guys played last night. Like how many, the net stat of like, did you actually bring it? Because there's one thing of checking in. There's one thing about making an impact. So I don't really miss me with that. I don't know. I just don't really. If the head coach of this team,
I was saying it in the sense
not you.
Of a statistical output and the value that presents. I mean, he's played a ton of minutes, and been like in the aggregate good in that. But no, you're right. It's not 51 for 51. The checklist has not been an A+ all 51 games. Absolutely not. And the problem is the games that the checklist is not checked. We have a pretty good idea of what games those are going to be in advance. And that is problematic because those games and those opponents are much more likely to be your playoff opponent.
Right.
That's the reality.
For a team and a coach that loves to talk about letting a cake bake, kind of seems like an organization right now that wants to have their cake and eat it too. Mm-hmm. And if the most important player on your team, per the coach's words, can't play his best basketball against the most important teams in the league, then I think we're having...
That's a pretty important note there.
Smoke and mirrors right now with what they're trying to do, because if you're going to go after Giannis Antetokounmpo, you are trying to... I mean, this is obviously very dumb, but like you are trying to win a title. Mm-hmm. And if a title is your number one goal, which it should always be, and like I'm risk averse, I would rather just have Ant and Jaden for another 6-7 years and maybe you get the boat out of those guys. If a title is what you're trying to win, then I have to be explained more of how the most important player on your team doesn't play title level basketball against other teams that are contending for a title.
I think that's fair. And it's the conundrum. But he's not doing nothing,
Oh, no. They do. They crush that trade. They crush the Julius Randle and Dante and Johan Berenger for Karl Anthony Towns trade. Like if you're only consuming Timberwolves content right now, I dare you to go look at what's going on in Knicks Reddit. Like the Wolves got so much of that Karl Anthony Towns lemon. They squeezed a ton of juice out of it. And Julius Randle has been really, really good. But if you want to say that Jaden McDaniels has been really, really good, and this is the sell high point, they didn't necessarily get Julius Randle at a sell high point from the Knicks. They got a kind of banged up version of him, and they have polished him up. And he himself has made lifestyle changes that has made him worthy now of being a real asset. But you have to ask, again, you can't, I speak out of both sides of the mouth all the time because I don't have any skin in the game here. If you are running this thing and building this roster and you own this team and you're coaching these players, everything you're saying right now does not all actually make sense. It's okay when I do it, but when you do it, it's not okay. Not you, Dane, but like the team. And I just don't think what they're saying translates to what they're trying to do.
Yep. They're in a weird spot. Feels like a team that needs to make a move that has a limited ability to make a move, which makes making a move not inherently the right move. It's an interesting predicament, and we'll see what happens on Thursday.
Imagine Canis, Kyle, and Dane just being like, you know how much easier it would have been to do content of like the Wolves are in the mix for Giannis, and Giannis wants to play with Ant. Like that would have been easy blog material. It's a fascinating thing. It really is. Like as dumbed down as it sounds, they are one of the 4 teams potentially, if you believe everything you read, in the mix for one of the 6 best players in the league.
Yeah.
Despite having less in their checking account than most other teams that are contending for a title with them right now in the West. I mean, they're going after Giannis, and teams ahead of them in the standings that have 10 times as many assets as them aren't going after Giannis. That's crazy. And it just makes all of this so fascinating.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Well, we will see. We will see. I'm not sure if it's going to be Kyle and I or Britt and I kind of figuring that out, but we will do an episode on Thursday after the trade deadline has passed. That will come out Thursday evening at some point. We're not going to record first thing in the morning on Thursday after the Wolves-Raptors game. I guess that'll be a big part of the conversation of that episode if the Wolves don't make any moves or make minimal moves. But yeah, from a content standpoint, the trade deadline will be interesting. Something will happen or not happen, and that'll be something to talk about. And Kyle and the other guests will be with me to do that. You guys can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Theige, and you can listen to him here on this pod at least once a week. I'm glad your voice is working again, and
my foot's healed.
I love when we just do these deep cut jokes that some people are probably like, "Is something actually wrong with Kyle's foot?" Maybe.
Yeah, you know what though? I will say, as we throw back to the content days that writing blogs and stuff, it was cool to have. I mean, it gave me flashbacks to the COVID years when you just did 82 game recaps. You're one of my good friends, but I would also be a dick to you if I wanted to. And like, I thought it was cool to listen to you just go 35 minutes solo. So I think a lot of people preferred that. Maybe we can mix in some more of those. It's a lot of work, but yeah.
It took me till 4 a.m. We're not doing that anytime.
Oh, okay. Breaking news.
It was a late game. It was after the Thunder game. But yeah, appreciate you doing it. I don't know. Until Thursday, maybe we'll be Kyle again. Maybe we'll be Britt. Got to figure that out. But yeah, until then, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah. Hope you dancing like